Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to episode 163 of Chord and Conversation at your fingertips. And I was very proud of that title because mainly me, but I have used that exact quote in this conversation. I use it in many conversations here on Chord and Conversation because it still boggles my mind that so many things are at our fingertips in this day and age. But I used it especially a lot in this conversation here with our guest, Iron Ben Coles, aka Iron J, and I thought it was a clever little pun as well, because fingertips, fish fingers, haha. But no, this was a very fun conversation with Iron J / Iron Ben Coles / Benny Coles / whatever else he wants to go by, I don't know. But no, I just appreciate him for coming on, and I'll thank him 100,000 times in the intro and the outro, and thanked him a lot in the actual conversation as well, just because we're always grateful here at Chord and Conversation at CIC Pod. I am riding solo again this week, and if you've seen the thumbnail, you'll see that it's just me on the thumbnail. There's no Nova. Unfortunately, Nova Lee is still dealing with a few little health issues. She should hopefully be back very, very soon. God, I hope so, because y'all are probably sick of hearing my voice, especially in this. I went on like a little 2-minute rant just telling Iron like basically my life. It wasn't actually my life story, but basically just kind of setting up a segue rather than just doing the segue. But it's fine. This is my chaotic ADHD unmedicated brain. It's my chaotic, just wrestling focused, just trying to absorb everything and anything all at once, even though it's unfortunately impossible. But I'm going to get right into it today. Before I do the song and match of the week, I do just want to make a little note. Again, I'll do the full-on plugs in the outro, but I need to make a little note. First and foremost, ICW Australia has made ICW Tag Warfare on June 7th a private event. I'm not entirely sure of the logistics, but if you want to know more, I'm sure you can message them on social media. If you really want to attend, you can message them and work out the logistics on if tickets are still available and etc., etc., etc. But with that being said, remember, something that I have been hammering home for quite a bit now, the Emma Butler Memorial Show, raising money for the Emma Butler Tongue Cancer Charity, a charity that means a lot to me because my dad passed from the same cancer. You've heard it all before, but we have pushed it forward due to reasons beyond our control. The date has changed. It is now October 11th at the Cowra Uniting Church. There are just over 50 tickets remaining, and we've actually just announced our very first match for the card. Of course, we had our very first talent announcement this past week with Joel Bateman will be in action, opponent TBA, but the first official match has just been announced for that today as I record this intro and outro on Wednesday the 30th of April. Obviously, you're not listening to this until the following Sunday, or maybe you're listening to it earlier because you're a $5 Patreon subscriber, and I love you very much because I've got minus $30 right now, and if it wasn't for my two $5 subscribers, it'd be minus 40. How good's adulting? If you come to the show, you will see this match, which is the Dad Squad versus Whiplex in a tag team grudge match. That is the very first official match for ICW Central West 2025 Emma Butler Memorial Show, and I'll talk more about that and my merch that's available and yada 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 in the outro. But before we get to this conversation with Iron J, aka Iron Ben Coles, aka Benny Coles, I'm probably going to do that spiel every time I mention his name, just to cover all bases, to be honest. The song and match of the week. The song of the week this week, if you've been following me on socials, you will see that I've been using this song on many, many things, so I'm just going to make it the song of the week for this episode, and that is Iron Man by Black Sabbath, or Ozzy Osbourne, because he does do it at solo shows as well, but the song of the week is Iron Man by Black Sabbath, and your match of the week is Iron J versus Matt Silver, aka Buddy Matthews, from AWF, it's now the Australian Wrestling Federation. I believe it was the Australasian Wrestling Federation at the time, but AWF Best of the Best 2012. That is Iron J, aka It's Iron J versus Matt Silver, AWF Best of the Best 2012. That are your song and match of the week. But I'm not going to fiddle fart and fuck around in this intro today. I'm going to press this button And because Nova's not here, I'm going to do a terrible job at ring announcing, but unfortunately the professional's not here, so y'all are just going to have to deal with it. Ladies and gentlemen, making his Caught in Conversation debut from Wollongong, New South Wales, you may know him as TV's Iron J. This is Iron Ben Coles! Ladies and gentlemen, I am here with Iron J, aka Iron Ben Coles, aka Benny Coles, or whatever other combination you can try and think of. And just simply put, mate, how are you doing tonight?
I'm good, mate. How are you?
Honestly, it's a little bit rowdy here tonight at the CIC compound. We've had a few break-ins and stuff in the last couple of weeks. We've taken some extra security measures, but that hasn't really deterred them too much. So hopefully I can do this conversation without it being interrupted, because I can hear dogs barking in the background, so I'm hoping that's just them barking at nothing, to be honest. Yeah. It's been a fun time here in real life.
No, fair enough.
But before I get into it, as I said to you just before off air, I want to obviously be as respectful of your time as I can. But before I get into the questions, I did have a message just passed on real quick from the Giant Coyote. He just wanted me to say it, and on air as well, so that he knew that I'd say it. But he just wanted me to pass on his love to you, and he said he had great times wrestling you for SWA, and yeah, that he hoped you were doing well. So yeah, that's wanted to pass that out on air from the Giant Coyote.
Oh, thank you very much. I appreciate that.
But we always ask the same question, Benny, for first-time guests on the show. And it's a very generic question, but I feel like it's a good way to break the ice. And that is just simply put, what was your earliest professional wrestling memory?
Oh, geez. Probably be... I vaguely remember Stone Cold just going and causing a ruckus, causing chaos as he always did. But probably the biggest one that grabbed me was The Rock and Jericho, just promo going against each other one-on-one. I think that promo that they did on Jericho's debut was something that grabbed me. But yeah, those ones were the things that kind of jumped out at me the most.
That war is... I said Raw is war. That Raw is Jericho promo is iconic.
Yeah, it definitely just, Rock on the promo was always just fantastic. But yeah, seeing someone new debuting the way he debuted, yeah, it was just something very different.
Somehow
I really
managing to go toe-to-toe with The Rock, and although he had a lot of success to WCW, there was a lot of fans that they only watched one or the other, so in a lot of ways, he was like almost a nobody, and then comes in and matches The Rock on the microphone, which is unheard of, really.
Yeah, and I wasn't familiar with WCW back then. So, I was always...
So you were in that boat?
Yeah, 100%.
Just like, who the hell is this Gene Simmons-looking motherfucker coming on my screen? And he's somehow talking trash to The Rock.
Yeah.
That's awesome. So how old would you have been roughly about that time, or what year ballpark? Was it live that you were watching as it happened, or was it a rerun?
Yeah, mate. I would be watching the Raw is War in my bedroom on a 32-centimeter TV. It was the tiny TV. I had Foxtel in there on Fox Sports. And it was on Tuesdays, and I'd get 2-for-1 pizzas, and I'd smash 2 pizzas in my bedroom and just watch that damn show on Tuesday. It was great.
I guess on a technicality, it was always a rerun on that point. But yeah, you were watching it live, like on the Australian broadcast. That's cool. That's cool. That's cool.
Yeah, it was as live as we had. Because, again, internet wasn't pumping. You weren't getting all as much connected as you are now. So, yeah, you had to wait. I think it was like 4 weeks to get the tapes on VHS before you could watch the pay-per-views. Just how spoiled people are now for wrestling is nuts.
I remember the early days of Facebook, being a part of, various just wrestling groups and pages, and having the US people get mad because at the time SmackDown was taped, so we'd actually get it a full day before the US was, and I was forever posting stuff, and might have buddies being like, stop fucking spoiling it, and I'd be like, whoops, sorry.
Yeah, it's wild.
So was that just kind of hook you from the get-go then? Like just seeing, as you said, Austin causing a ruckus, but that promo, was that kind of the defining moment for you in terms of?
Yeah, I believe it would be. So, and again, I grew up with two brothers, so we just watch it, and then they'd all come in the room and watch, and we'd always just be watching wrestling, and then just mimicking and copying, and we'd smash lights and do all kinds of stuff around the house. And parents weren't too impressed, but get a trampoline, you just do all that stuff.
I remember breaking the net on one of my friends' trampoline. Not that we ever tried it at home, of course. That don't try this at home, school, or anywhere. But what point did you? This conversation is going to jump back and forth in terms of timelines, but I promise it'll make sense in the end. At what point did you discover that there was wrestling just outside of WWE in general, or WWF at the time, I should say? But when did you discover there was other wrestling out there? And then following on from that, when did you discover that it was actually here in Australia?
It took me a long time. I was just so WWF focused. That was just my little tunnel, and my little that's all I'd watch. That's all I'd study. And it wasn't until, because my parents always asked me, like, what do you want to do when you finish high school and that? And it was just pro wrestle. And again, when you don't have a strategy and you don't have an idea of how to get there, the person with the better plan generally wins. And I ended up doing an electrical apprenticeship. which they signed me up for, and they said, no, you got to do this, because I didn't have any idea on how to get into the business or what was around. And then I remember looking on, just Googling and having a look around, and stumbled across like AWF and some Australian companies. And I was really like, oh, I could actually do this. I could practice and learn. But my parents were just, you'll ruin the apprenticeship. If you get hurt, you won't be able to finish it, and put a lot of fear into me in that sense. So I waited until the end of the apprenticeship, and as soon as the apprenticeship finished, I then joined the wrestling school.
So how did you go about that then, Benny? Like, was there a certain moment or anything that prompted you to contact the school, or was it just kind of a case of just, shit, I've always wanted to do this, and now that I've finished the apprenticeship, I can finally do it?
It was literally just looked online, which ones jumped out at me. AWF jumped out, and just put my name. I just emailed and sent through. Had the cash so I could pay for it, and just went off to learn. Like, I didn't even watch an AWF show prior to me joining the school. Yeah, so it was very out of, I didn't know anybody, I didn't know anything. I was very out of my element, but I trained. So obviously when I was doing my electrical apprenticeship, I hit the gym afterwards, and I knew I needed to look a certain way. So I focused on that. So when I came in, I really kind of was able to be pushed a lot further, I felt, because I looked a certain way. And even though I was doing a referee role and basically you're setting all the ring up, you're doing all the, you're doing all the stuff that you got to do when you're breaking in. So when I was put in the ring, and people were saying, yeah, you're bigger than some of the wrestlers, mate. How come you're the ref? And it was just funny that where I was kind of put.
I've seen that myself, and I've been the victim of that myself. Where, like, look, I'm 5'9", that's average height. So I'm standing there, and I'm like, why the fuck is this 6'2" ref reffing my match? You're making me look like shit. But no, I think we've all been there. But it's funny because I was, I want to say 15, 16 when I first discovered Australian wrestling, and funnily enough, it was actually AWF as well, but it was at a Supernova. And at the time, I didn't quite have social media then. It was very, very early on social media, at least. But I didn't get a chance to kind of watch the shows or, keep up with it online or anything like that. So I literally discovered it kind of just before you actually retired, which made me sad, because for the longest time, and I'll admit this to you on air, I always wondered if Iron J was an actual real wrestler, and we're going to get to the ads and everything later in the conversation, but I didn't have internet access and stuff at home. I only had it at school and whatnot, so I didn't know that Iron J was a real person or a real wrestler or anything like that. So I'm literally, this last week I've been talking to my wife, and I'll admit I was actually so nervous for this, because I didn't find out until 2 months ago that Iron J was an actual wrestler. And then obviously now in today's day and age, I type it in and it comes up, but it just was kind of one thing that was in the back of my mind. But then someone the other day, I was playing a game on Twitch. I can't even remember what game it was. And someone randomly said, it was my mate Samuel, he randomly said, this guy looks like Iron Ben Coles. And I was like, I'm sorry, I don't know who that is. And then he's like, do you know? He's like, oh, you might know him as Iron J. And I was like, hold the fuck up. Do you mean like as in like the fish fingers guy? Because not to disrespect you in any manner, that was what my brain went to. And he went, oh yeah, shit, da-da-da-da. And then on Good Friday, which was, I think, 2-3 weeks after that conversation, by pure chance, my wife bought Iron J Fish just because it was on the fucking special, which is what prompted me to message you. But like, yeah, I'm so kind of annoyed in a way that I came into it just before you left, but I somehow, because I didn't have internet, I didn't get to watch you in that time period. But it's just kind of funny to me in a weird way that I think AWF for a lot of people, especially in that era where you started training for the, 6-7 years you're in the business, that era, I think a lot of people saw AWF first, was basically the long point of that rant. But my goal as a young person before I actually started wrestling was, I always want to wrestle in the AWF. And who knows, maybe one day when my health gets back on track, it might happen just to check the bucket list for shits and gigs. But it's just so annoying to me that I never got to know who you were until very, very recently.
Yeah, it happens.
But the long-winded that was I was attempting to segue. You had a 6-7 year career, I believe, off the top of my head, mainly with AWF, and you wrestled all around Australia. But what are some of your fondest memories of wrestling in the AWF, or just wrestling in general once you took that plunge?
I think just meeting the boys and the crew, like it was just the connection you have. Obviously, with training, they hammer you, they they test you, and anytime you go through some hazing or things like that, where you are tested like physically, mentally, and you push through it, I feel that you get some great connections with people, and you get some respect as well, obviously, as you start to put in the time, put in the work. And so the fond memories are obviously just doing the ring crew, putting it together, but the 3 a.m. drives and the pack downs and stuff like that, meeting new people that are on the same journey that you were on, and just it's kind of that full circle kind of thing as you get older and more experienced, and then you see the new ones come through, and it is that that connection. I think that's the biggest thing, and the people that you meet. And I went to Canada. I trained over there as well, and same thing. You start from the start. You start from the basics, and you learn all the way through that. And it's -32 over there. It was freezing. You're freezing your ass off, and you see people who paid like $10K to do this course, and in the first week they quit and they don't get a refund and they're gone, and you're like, wow. And then the other thing, you just build these fantastic relationships, and some people that you've only met like with a month, or you haven't even met, but like and you just crash at my place, it's fine, and you all of a sudden you're in wrestling, and you've just got these great respect and these great friendships and connections that it's just wild.
Did you, obviously training was your main focus, but did you get to take in any of the sites while you were over in Canada?
No, everyone said, "What'd you do?" And I said, "I wrestled." It was, we did Storm Wrestling Academy for how long was it there? A few months, and that's all I did. It was just full time doing that. -32, you'd go to the gym. You do the course, and then you hit the gym afterwards. And then I found where the heart training was going on over there, and then you train as well in the afternoons, and you're just putting your body through hell. But that's part of the dance, really.
I will say it obviously paid off, because even if you don't know who you are, like you look at one of your promo shots, and obviously now we'll get into the personal training stuff in a minute, but if you look at a photo of you in like any time period within wrestling in your ring gear, you can straight up go, even if you don't know that like you're a wrestler, you're instantly thinking that he's some sort of competitor or bodybuilder, because you were always tremendously in shape throughout your entire career.
Yeah, and I think that was the big thing for me. I knew I needed to look a certain way. That was always the thing. You needed to either look a certain way, you needed to have the ability, or you needed to have the personality. And obviously, if you're 7 foot and you can be really good in one of those areas, but trying to find the balance between the three, I do find is the best. Obviously, at my height, because I'm only 6 foot, you really had to look a certain way. You needed to present yourself a certain way, and then hone in on the skill and then get better on the mic and that.
Okay, so we're going to fast forward a little bit. What prompted you to step away from the business, hang up the boots, and how did that lead to you, becoming a personal trainer / coach / motivator? Because I think you said you've done, obviously you're doing the PT stuff towards the tail end of the wrestling stuff because you've been going on 15 years now. But what prompted that? Was that just because, like as you said, you had to look a certain way, or?
So for me, I learnt PT just because I thought I would travel with wrestling and I could get free memberships at gyms if I was a personal trainer and could do casual work and things like that.
Oh,
and if I traveled to work, that was kind of how I connected the dots there in terms of PT. So I always learned when I did my electrical, that's 3 years at TAFE, and the 4th year is just all on work. So like you're just out on the job site. So that last year, I just said I'll just do PT, and just started learning that. So I got my qualifications from that. When work got quiet, because I went to Canada and I came back, work got quiet because that was going through the 2008 financial GFC. Yep. I don't know how old you would have been then, but obviously
I was 14, so not super young, but
yeah. But so work got quiet, and I was ready to go into the mines. And on the last day of the miners rescue course, someone said, "Hey, there's a fish finger ad. Would you be keen to audition for it?" And I ended up going for that and got that. And then I didn't end up going into the mines and doing electrical in there at all. And then because I had the PT background, I went straight into PT as well. So when I was doing wrestling, I was still doing PT as well. So it wasn't kind of I finished and then did it. My last match was actually with tryouts with WWE is when I wrapped it up. I was getting close to 30, and in the tryouts, so these were in Melbourne. I got my teeth smashed in pretty severely. So it was funny. The whole kind of 2 days, they're just like, "Hey, at the end of this, there's going to be this great feast. You're going to have all this food. It's going to be awesome." Everyone's like all excited for it. They're pushing you. You're running upstairs. You're getting slammed. You're doing everything as they're testing you and putting you through everything. And then you had to put a match together in like 5 minutes. And in that, at the very end of that match, I just got my teeth smashed in and had to spend about, I think it was about $12,000 on my teeth.
Oh,
and it was like, okay, they're either going to like what I have or not. And just the way that was dealt with and how it was happening, it was just kind of, here's a piece of paper with all the dentists in Melbourne. Good luck. And everyone's going to eat food and I'm getting in a cab and just going through all this. And that was just kind of, and then I remember talking to a guy after that who I respected very much. And he just said, I would probably have to spend on that. Obviously you could wrestle with mouth guard and stuff like that. My hair was starting to get a bit thin in that as well. And then I'm just like, I think that's it. So I never officially retired, but it was kind of, when you shave your head and do all that stuff, you're kind of wrapping it up. But yeah.
Yeah, that's brutal. I didn't know that. I knew that you'd had tryouts previously once I did, start doing my research and stuff on you. But man, that of all the times, like obviously you never want to have injuries or anything happen in wrestling, but of all the times for them to happen at such a pivotal point, it's kind of sucked. But at the same time, I guess maybe it's bittersweet because it kind of gave you that maybe clarity to say, hey, maybe we should focus on this. And now you've 15 years plus doing that. Did you want to take this time to kind of, give the rundown of, obviously without giving too much away, but of like, how your program works and how people can approach you to, tackle that program?
A little shameless plug, eh?
Absolutely, mate.
Well, actually, I'm doing carpentry at the moment, so I'm not promoting much of my own stuff. Yeah, so if people do ask about PT and stuff like that, I'm always happy to help people out and give them directions and stuff like that. So I've only got a real small handful of clients at this stage because, yeah, and again, it's always something I can do, and I love helping people. But it's one of these things where I'm just kind of, learning new skills at this stage. And taking on apprenticeships at the moment, believe it or not.
Jack of all trades is Benny Colds, I'm learning from this conversation.
Master of none.
Oh, that's brilliant. But so if someone, obviously, because I know you've got the link in that there for the send the email. If someone sends you the email, is there a set thing that you'll send back to them, or do you tailor it to each individual?
Well, it depends on the individual. Sometimes I just have a chat with them and see where they're at. So obviously, if someone's asking about fitness, they've kind of hit a point where they can't get there on their own. It's like something for them's not. You'd go out and be able to do it yourself. So anytime someone's seeking help or guidance, I'm always curious as to why. What's going on, and just seeing what struggles or what problems they're facing. Sometimes you check out their life and where they're at, and sometimes their social life's not good, and they're real social people, and they're just not making connections and stuff like that. So it's like sometimes I can recommend getting into a fitness class and trying boxing or different things. So sometimes I don't even promote my own services. It's really depending on where they're at. So my service is like a mobile, so I'll chuck all the gear in my car and go to people's houses and torture them in the comfort of their own home, and bring scales. And so the accountability is there. So each week you actually got me throwing scales on the floor, jumping on it, because they're either going down or they're not. And if they're not going down, then it's my job to figure out why it's not going down, So... And you got to figure it out. So you got to make sure they're writing down everything that they're eating, and if they're moving more, if they're lifting weights or training, if they're going out, if they're partying, and you can see who's serious and who's not, who wants the goal but not there. You got to get the actions behind the goals, and that's kind of a bit of my job to figure that kind of stuff out.
It's kind of like a sidebar, just a bonus question. Obviously, you said you basically got into the PT stuff, as you said, to find work, but mainly because you were still wrestling at the time, so you kind of you're working out, so you might as well, sort of thing. What's been a bigger challenge for you, keeping yourself in shape or having to help other people?
I think because I've done it, I know a lot of hacks and I know a lot of little tricks, so I can... I just do, I'm going to be good for 8 weeks because I've been bad for, 2 years. But that's seriously how quick you can smash things out. If you do 10-week challenges or 12, but you really got to commit to it. You can't just kind of dip your toe in and go, I'll start again Monday. It's like, okay, I'm starting now and this is why it's important to me. But so it's always someone else because you don't know what problems, and people generally lie. So you really have to make sure you're covering everything. And the way with PT as well is I'll only train people for 12 weeks, and then I'll just cancel it. I won't train them after that because obviously it's not smart as a business model, because it's like obviously people want to have recurring income if you're smart as a business person. But if you genuinely want to help someone, you want to give them all the tools so they don't need you. You do yourself out of a job, but you're giving them all the tools and all the power to obviously empower that area for themselves.
I can understand that though, because it's the old adage of you lead a horse to water, or you teach a man to fish, blah blah blah. Throw your cliche at the wall. Here, I can understand that mentality. That's actually, it's a very interesting way to look at it, but it does actually make sense.
But from a business side, you can charge more as well doing that. So you said, but obviously you replace the new pain for them is now a financial pain because they want to, hey, I want to get fit, I want to do that. And you're like, well, this is what the price is. How serious are you? And you can generally go, oh, I'm not that serious. And you put $1 on that, and straight away they're just like, oh, it's like, well, you can go down and train with such and such down the road and, pay that. But if you want to train with me, you pay up front. We go 12 weeks and, if you don't, if they're not putting in the effort, like I'm doing everything from my end, it's like, are they stepping up? Are they, stepping up from their end?
But see, even just from what you've told me, though, I feel like I'd be more inclined to go your route, because there's a lot of like places, like whether it be PTs or gyms in general, where it's like, oh, you pay for this, 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 and this. Where if you're straight up going, this is what you pay for, it's 12 weeks of X, Y, Z. For me, I'm like, that's so simple and to the point, where I'm like, I actually appreciate that more.
Yeah, like, but there's only 4 levers for weight loss, or like even for what, if you want to put on size or anything, any kind of goals. It's your mindset. It's like, how's your headspace? How's your food? How's your eating? How's your movement? And how's your exercising? So they're the 4 levers. And as from I look at all of those 4. And if your mindset's no good, you're not gonna get the results. If your food's no good, you're not gonna get results. If you're not walking, if you're not moving, you're not gonna get results. It's very hard. So, and it's kind of, you have to start the base. The bottom one is your mindset. And it's like a pyramid. So the next one on top of that is your nutrition. Then the next one on top of it is your movement, and on top of that's training. And a lot of people go straight to the training, which again, if any of the other 3 aren't good, you're just not going to get the results.
See, like I will never be a Greek statue, right? I got a bit of a beer belly, but like I've been telling people for so long, like obviously there are health factors and stuff in some particular cases, but for the most part, like I just had stitches taken out of my eyeball after having them in there for almost 3 years. It's a long fucking time. I haven't been able to exercise for the last 4 years because my eyeball was literally at the risk of exploding from just various health issues. But during that time, just by changing what I was eating and drinking more water and going for more walks, I still dropped 30 kilos, and obviously I shouldn't have put on that weight to begin with, but that's a whole nother story. But like, and this is what I keep trying to tell people, like, they don't believe how simple it is to have just the mindset. Like, dude, like...
Yeah, 100%.
But
you do have to, just have that. Yeah, you give yourself that goal and you just got to have that. I'm not taking any more. That's it. And sometimes it's just that's it, and that switch goes for people. And you can tell the people that are going to get the results. It's just straight away you can see who's serious and who's not.
We're going to move along just a little bit now. As I said, this is going to jump all over the place because obviously we're not going to cover your entire career in just, an hour or so conversation. But while we're doing some research, we came across something that popped, I say we as in me and my wife, because she was meant to be here as the co-host, but she's under the weather herself at the moment. But we were doing some research and we came across the superheroes of wrestling stuff that you used to do for the kids' parties and such. And I'm just curious myself, as I've never done something like that. Like, I've done pop-up shows at markets and stuff like that, but how does the logistics and stuff of that work in terms of putting together an entire children's party, and is it any different to running a show or a market show?
Well, what happened was through PT, one of the mums of one of my clients, she was a teacher, and she said, would you be interested in coaching kids? And I said, yes, no worries, love to help out. So I ended up doing like active after school care and was running like fitness, activities and games and workshops and stuff like that. Now, one of the mothers knew me from I&J, from the fish finger ads, and she said, could you do these games in a wrestling outfit? And I said, sure, why not? Beats setting up a wrestling ring, so I said I could do that. So, and I was very nervous and I wasn't feeling confident in being able to, put my costume on and entertain kids for, an hour, 2 hours, whatever it was. So I thought strength in numbers. So I brought 2 other wrestlers with me, and we just went and played, you had the hero, you had the villain, we kind of bounced off each other. You had a female wrestler there as well. And yeah, it just kind of worked really well. And then, just playing tug of war games, doing it, just being idiots. And you're trying to add like a wrestling element to it, where you got the cheering and the booing and the sneaking up behind you, and giving out presents and taking them back. Any kind of cheesy wrestling, cheap pop, boo kind of thing you could add. And kids are just, they're like, kids are awesome because they will let you know what they're loving and what they're hating. And then at the end, the guy, the Traffic, who was the villain at the parties, he would say, "Hey, you should smash that cake in my face." And this is like the kid's birthday cake. And I'm like, man, I can't do, like, that would be awesome, but I can't, we can't ruin this kid's birthday cake. And then we ended up deciding to do just a slice of cake and smashing it. And then, the cake smash is born, and you've got a whole thing with just the cake smash, So we'd go around and it just kind of snowballed from that.
See, I'll be 31 this year, and I still think that I want that for my birthday. That's that's awesome.
well, we legit did a first birthday, and we did a 40th birthday we ran for 10 years, and we did from that age grade, and the 40th, I thought, this is going to be easy because they're all going to be drunk, and there was no alcohol at this 40th. And we're like, this is just nuts. But we did, some people wanted wrestling rings in their backyard, so we set them up, and then we teamed up with like local PCYCs, so it's like the police boys clubs, and we were able to raise money for charities using like the boxing rings that they hadn't, and then again, you being able to make it more affordable for families and stuff like that. So we're just always constantly thinking of ways. We did like charity discos, and we did so much. We got into schools, and we just ran everywhere with it.
Hell yeah. The main reason I actually bring this up, though, is while I was doing the research, I noticed that last year you actually put the gear back on for one of these superhero events, and I was just wondering, like, what was the extent of that? Did you get into any physicality at all, or did it give you the itch to come back?
No, there's no itch. There was just some ones that they always had us back every year, and they said, "Oh, could you please come back? Could you please?" And they wanted us. So like for one of them, like it's Bear Cottage, which is like a kids' hospice. So it's like it's a very, like, they had us go there for like the last 8 years, and just being able to go to those kinds of places and just bring smiles to kids' faces, it's just it's huge, So just being able to give out shirts and give out masks and stuff like that, and get the police and firefighters being able to do tug of war contests and stuff like that, bring out bubble machines, it's just bringing smiles to kids' faces that are obviously going through a lot, even their families and that as well. So that one obviously meant a lot to us, and they supported us a lot as well and always helped us out. So
See, that's the stuff that I love to hear. Like, it sounds like kind of like cliche, but like every time someone's asked me like, why did I want to be a wrestler? It was always like, it was the same thing. Like, I just want to make these kids feel the way that the wrestlers made me feel like as a kid. And I'd love to do like events like that. That is so cool to me. And I know that there's a few promotions actually in Australia that they do full blown shows and stuff now for birthday parties, which is insane to think about. Like, what the hell, mum and dad, where was my wrestling birthday party? But like that is so cool to whether it's a party or just a charity fundraiser, like you said, like that's such a cool little thing. And I'm glad that you still find enjoyment in just chucking the suit on just for some fun.
It used to be like I was the hero, and I'd take a villain with me, and we do things like that. But by the end of it, we're just like, screw it, and we all just went heel, and it would be the wrestlers versus the kids, and
yes,
you could just have so much, you do like tug of war, and you take on the birthday kid, and you cheat, and you just beat the kid, and everyone's just like booing the hell out of you, and you're just getting so much heat, and it's just beautiful, and and the kids, they just end up beating you and destroying you, and it's it's good fun though.
Yeah, I remember doing a thumb war with a young boy who I can't even remember what his disability was, but like I sold it like he'd snap my fucking arm into. Yeah. And I was like, it's just fun. And people are like, yeah, but aren't you meant to be a heel? And I'm like, yeah, I could have cheated to win, but I'm like, I feel like overselling it and acting like he snapped my arm was just as fun.
No, you just cheat. You just cheat and beat them, and like I do a race with them, and I just take off on 2, and I just run and celebrate like I just freaking ran, won a bloody Olympic gold, and they're all booing, and yeah.
It's awesome. This next one is a 2-parter. I guess it might actually technically be a 3-parter, depending on how I look at it. I don't know how on the pulse you are at the moment with the current like wrestling scene and product, both in Australia and abroad. But in our research, as you noticed last night, I watched a handful of matches of yours, and just like, How is it like? How does it feel for you in hindsight, looking up now, and you see the likes of AJ Istria and Andy Rhodes going on to be some of the best wrestling trainers and mentors in the country, and then on top of that, we watched a match of yours with one Matt Silver, of course, Buddy Murphy / Matthews. How is it like for you watching him go on and have all the success that he's had?
I think I beat that guy.
You did.
I think everyone's just on their own journey and things like that. You know, I know if I stayed with wrestling, my body would be in a lot of pain. There would be, you know, you would have to do things that I probably would go against how I just life on the road and stuff like that. I'm just like, my body wouldn't, you'd have to lean into the, the pain kills kind of story, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
Which for me, I'm just like, I didn't want to go down that road. So, obviously, and training, I've always felt I was more into the story side of things than the abilities and the moves. And like, there are some fantastic wrestling trainers out there that could just, even the ones that I went through the AWF with, or Lance Storm, and they could just execute moves so crisp, and they put in so much time just learning how to do certain things and how to maneuver. And I had so much respect for that. Whereas I was always more, from my side, was the story and the psychology of it, more so than the moves and things like that. And I always found that the trainers needed to just be very good from the like how you did moves and things like that, where I would twist myself up and I'd kind of, you confuse yourself a little bit, and it's always hard when you teach. Like, obviously you get better as you teach that stuff, but I just felt that it wasn't the road I wanted to take, I guess. But obviously tremendous respect for everyone who's, gone on to training and teaching others that way. And then obviously, you got Buddy doing his thing in, AEW and tearing it up there.
Now, obviously, we're going to get to the INJ stuff properly in just a second. But like me seeing you on my television screens as a 14, 15-year-old was just blown away. One, because it was wrestling, but like the INJ character has just stuck with me forever. And the moment it came up, I was like, holy shit, I remember that. Like you were really good at the character side of stuff and the storytelling stuff. Not to blow smoke, but that makes sense now that you've said that was more your favorite thing to do. Have you ever considered doing like seminars and stuff just purely for like the psychology and promo and character work side of things?
I did like wrestling psychology course. So obviously online, I had that running for a bit. Just kind of everything I wanted to teach. So I was teaching online. I was doing like social media stuff. What was it? Like the social media, what do they call them? The influencer kind of that.
Yeah.
Where I was showing up every day and teaching and doing things like that. So I did that for 2 years and put a whole school together. So this was more, it started with like exercise and nutrition and things like that. And then I just did some side courses, and one of them was wrestling psychology. And I just kind of taught everything I wanted to teach in that. But yeah, if anyone wanted to pick my brain and ask me things, I'm always happy to help or share what I can. It's always fun pulling apart matches and looking at them. So, but you can always, when you're watching it, you can always be the best critic to, even wrestling shows. You could watch WWE and go, what the hell are they doing? Why are they putting those, I could book something better, but it's always hard when you're in the heat of the moment or live in a match trying to figure out what's going on,
See, even I'm always the first one to admit that, like, I was never a great wrestler. I was a good worker. Same thing. I could tell the story. I could do the character work. But even me being greener than goose shit, I'm so guilty of doing that, where I'll watch a show and I'll be like, oh, yeah, that was, they should have done this instead of this. And then it's just like, I hate myself for it, because, like, I try so hard to watch as a fan, but then there's times where you just, like, you'll see him do, like, a move into another move, and you'll just be like, that doesn't make sense. Like, it's always there. And I appreciate, because I know Giant Coyote, who we shouted out at the start of the episode, he himself obviously can't wrestle because of his injury. He has been very public about wanting to do seminars just in terms of character work and stuff like that. And the fact that I know there are some schools in Australia that kind of dabble in that, but compared to like overseas, the fact that Australia doesn't double down on, let's just have a full-on like 2-hour session on character work, boggles my mind at times, to be honest.
Definitely. But it's always hard, like, obviously, unless you get to the WWE, to that top tier, and then you can kind of run the seminars. I always find you had to get right to the very top to get paid well to do seminars, essentially. It was always very tricky to kind of do it when you're down lower, on the cards and stuff like that. It's always just kind of that, especially if you want to book out seminars and things like that, it's very hard to kind of do that.
Now, we've touched on it a few times, and you said before that, like, it was just kind of an email, but how did the I&J ads come to be? Like, what was the discussion? Was it literally just, do you want this fish fingers ad? And then it built from there, or?
No, one of the wrestlers from AWF, he had an agent, and it was his agent said, hey, bring some wrestlers. They're looking for a wrestler for this role. And I just got lucky. Right place, right look. I didn't even have wrestling gear at the time. I was wearing like bike shorts or something like that. Just went through whatever they wanted me to go through. And I remember I was like stuffed up my name. Like they just like say your name and your age, and there's like 3 questions. I'm like, what? I stuffed it up. And
Asked you 3 questions. You only know the answer to 2.
And I was like, what was the third one? It's like, your date of birth, bro. You're like, oh, so you just like, this is not going well. And I ended up getting it. And again, there's people who work their ass off their whole life trying to get something like that. But it was just, the right place, right time, right look. Like I never wanted to do acting. I never had an agent. It was a whole different world. And I just got lucky with it. But obviously I put in the time. I didn't drink when I went to high school. I was going to the gym a lot. I put in a lot of time in, so I looked a certain way, which did pay off. So that obviously paid off from that side of things, but it wasn't what I thought it would pay off in.
How did the other wrestlers react? Like, obviously, as you said, some of them were kind of auditioning and stuff and they knew about it. But how did, like, the wrestlers as a whole react to you once they'd seen that ad, or seen those ads on TV?
I think it was mixed. So obviously, because I was new, it shot me up to a higher level than I should have been, if that made sense.
Yep.
Obviously there's a ladder, there's a thing you've got to climb up to, and all of a sudden when you're on TV, you're in the main event now. It was kind of one of those things where did that man pay his dues? So you always had to be wareful of that, and obviously respectful to the veterans and stuff like that. But that was. It was right though, we were packing out shows. I was getting lines out the door, and I was just signing autographs all the time. It was nuts. Like that was just a huge wave. And then you do like a current affair, and you're on the front page of the Mercury. You're on billboards and buses, and it was just this crazy. Like 15 minutes of fame that just was nuts.
Do you think you were recognized more from actual wrestling or the ads?
From the ad, 100% the ad. Once TV, it's like if you're on TV, you're from TV, and people would point to you. It was just, it was weird. Like where people would just recognize you and you have no idea who they are, and it's like, hey, and it's like, hey.
Well, as I said earlier on, like I felt terrible because like I live and breathe wrestling, but I didn't have internet access properly at home at the time, and the fact, literally, I found out in the year 2025 that I&J was actually a real wrestler. And then obviously all these years later, I type your name in and, everything comes up with yourself, as whether it's I&J or Ben Coles or whatever, all this stuff comes up. But I was just like, that's understandable. That makes sense. But yeah, no, like I just wanted to ask, because I know that you were kind of, the time you wrestled was somewhat of a boom period for wrestling, at least within the Sydney, New South Wales area. So I just thought, I'd still throw it out there and ask, because I know, people like TNT and Mark Mercedes, and I'm not going to sit here and listen to all the names because I'll forget someone, but a lot of them have been on television on, Footy Show and stuff like that as well. But that's still pretty cool.
Definitely.
But obviously, as you said, you never really wanted to get into acting or anything like that. But once you did do the ads, did you ever feel like you wanted to pursue more commercials or go into actual like television or movies or anything like that?
You try and tee it up a bit with your agent, and you see but you're at the mercy of what they put your name forward for as well. And yeah, it's a different kind of world. For me, I didn't like lines and memorizing lines and repeating back lines and the repetition. So ended up doing 3 different fish finger commercials with the I&J kind of run, and one of them I remember just I'd had to stand up and scrunch up a piece like a newspaper and throw it in the bin, and I had to do that like 15 takes.
You're not scrunching this paper properly.
And they're like, you only got 2 more goes, man, because we've only got like the paper. They only had like 10 bloody papers that they had to kind of iron out and put it back together. Like, they're giving you all these cues, and they got cameras from different angles, and it's like it's for 2 seconds of a freaking commercial, and you're just like, this is nuts. Like, I don't think I have the patience to do acting, and there's just the repetitiveness of it. I love pro wrestling from a sport, like, because you're in there live, and it's not, I'll do that again could you do that clothesline again from a different angle? And it was always, you're just in it, and if things go off the bloody cliff and you're lost in there, you just get back on track and you figure out where you're going. And but not for me is the long story. But I did do a lot. Like I've been in plays and stuff like that. We did Ben-Hur at ANZ Stadium in front of 40,000 people. Oh, wow. Russell Crowe was the narrator for it.
That's sick.
and like my agent put me in as he wanted it as a soldier. And I go in there and we're doing the auditions for soldiers, and they said, do any of you have fighting experience? Because they're looking for gladiators. And, me and some of the wrestlers were like, yep, let's do it. So, and I ended up getting a champion gladiator role where I got to wrestle in front of 40,000 people with another wrestler, which was, and they had a stunt coordinator telling us all the safety moves to do. And, this is and so they were putting this whole fight scene together for us in front of 40,000. And then on the night, I may have whispered to him and said, hey, when we're out there, could you just like hit me with a clothesline and change the script live? Which again, it was nuts because it was like 2 nights, and the other wrestlers were like, yeah, do it. So then you get fired and we can do it the next night. But to me, I'm like, I'm never going to wrestle in front of 40,000 people again. Let's just, and the other guy was like, freaking out, going, oh, no, we can't do it. I said, listen, there's 40,000 out there. It's going to be crazy. I said, we'll call it out there. I said, if you're feeling it, then when this part happens, hit me with a clothesline, grab me by my hair, circle around, throw me on your shoulders, and then I'll just slip into a sleeper and we'll just finish it there. And he goes, all right, we'll call it out there. And we're going through the moves, everyone in the stadium. So they gave half the people like a red towel that came in and half the stadium a yellow towel. So I was the yellow captain, and the guy was the red captain. And when we came in, like the crowd was nuts, man. Like it was like a soccer friggin' stadium where cheer for your captain, and they're all like swinging it, and you're doing like wrist locks, and they're all like, go yellow, they're just yelling and screaming for you. And then you reverse it, and then you're in an arm bar, and they're all just going nuts. And it's all this safety, real, we practiced it over and over and over. And then it gets to the point, like, this is the craziest kind of energy I've ever felt from a crowd. And he just goes, I'm doing it. And he just leans back, drops me on the ground like it's crushed brick on this stadium bloody floor. I'm laying on this crushed brick. He grabs me by the hair, circles around, like, and the crowd just goes, oh, like you could just hear it, like this big kind of wind taking over everyone. And it killed me as well. Grabbed me by the hair, put me, threw me up on his shoulder. I grabbed him in the sleeper and we go down. I said, awesome, man. Thanks so much for that. And then he goes, no, not doing it. And he starts standing up. And I'm like, what are you doing? And he's just like, at the end, and the crowd's just going nuts for it. It was just crazy. He throws me over his shoulder. I roll through and put him into a bloody, like a storm half crab. And then we finish it there. But yeah, that was wild.
That is amazing. Absolutely amazing. Did you have any favorite moments from when you were filming the commercials, or a favorite commercial even?
Well, they kept throwing me off higher things. I think the first one, because it was the first one, new, exciting, and they treat you like royalty. Like, are you cold? You want a heater? You want food? And they would just
Hell
I've never
yeah.
had anything like that kind of experience where you're just so well looked after. Like they're freaking giving you, anything to keep you warm, making sure you're not, stressed out or whatever it is. Like it's like celebrity, you hear like, like certain celebrities' demands and all these things that they get, and all that. It's just wild. But I always found that they'll throw me off higher things. So the first one, I was like dropping elbows on the bed. The second one, I was doing elbows on the trampoline. And then there was the third one, I was diving off scaffolds, dropping elbows. So I just kept going up higher. But I think the funnest one was the trampoline, because you're just getting so much height, but you don't realize how much it just rips your chest by landing bare-chested on a trampoline over and over and over again. And, they just keep wanting more takes. Like, yeah, it was crazy.
Before we move on to the last quick rapid-fire questions, did you ever get sick of looking at fish fingers?
I can't say that, mate. Come on now, what are you doing to me? Love fish fingers.
No, I actually, honestly, the main reason I had I&J as a teenager was because of those ads. So my mum's probably somewhere thanking you, to be honest.
Oh yeah. Oh, they gave us like a freezer full. Like anytime you want fish fingers, you let us know, and we'll send them out to you. So I should hold them up to that.
In this economy.
Yeah. No.
But this is the part of the show as we start to kind of wind down a little bit, where we start to mark out a little bit. I know a lot of people think that being a mark is a dirty word, but one of the slogans for our pod is "For the marks, by the marks," and this is where you get to be a mark for yourself, Benny. What are some of your favourite matches of all time, both that you've had personally and then just that you've seen in general as a fan?
Oh, favorite matches. I'm loving AEW at the moment. You watch much of that?
I dabble in most wrestling. I don't watch full episodes, but I catch up here and there on YouTube with stuff that tickles my fancy.
Yeah, we went to All In London last year, and like that is just nuts. Like watching, those like just that atmosphere is just insane. So I'm loving all those matches. Like you can just watch any of their friggin' Will Ospreay matches, and you're just in for a good night. Like it's just night and day between them and WWE, just with match qualities and stuff like that, and with their pay-per-views. I'm just a big fan. My fiance is actually got me back into wrestling. I was off it for a while. And she introduced me to AEW, so it was pretty cool.
Yeah, I've been checking it out here and there, because now that ESPN has that deal with Disney Plus, I can actually watch it. I still only watch little bits here and there, but it's cool that it's there, literally at your fingertips.
Yeah, it's wild. It is. If you want to see like crazy wrestling, like just from quality, just from what they're putting together, I just find it's incredible what they can do now. I could never do all the stuff that they do, and I just know, like I wrestled so safe and I got so hurt, and I just know what they're doing is so like it's just insane, and you just know how much pain those guys and girls are in, and you're just like, man, I don't know how you're doing it, but so much respect for all of you for doing it.
It's so crazy, because like they all are professionals, but for the most part they are doing the super indie style, but it's being broadcast to millions of people on television, which is absolutely bonkers.
Yeah, I always wrestled WWE style just because it was always much more safer, so from storyline, you're mainly trying to do certain things at certain times to get certain reactions from the moves. Like to get those reactions just from moves is just wild. Like to just do spins and flips and all the stuff, you're like, holy crap. And then try and tell a story doing that as well is just, it's crazy how fast it's getting, how intense, and how physical and intense it's getting as well. So, but they're getting paid well. Obviously if they get to that level. So, hats off to them. I always had fun with a lot of the guys, Massive Q, Traffic, all those guys here in Australia. Just kind of different characters and very polar opposite kind of people. I always found, I could always have great matches. Tama, there's I could list all the old AWF guys like that we just went on the road with. It was always just a blast.
Okay. And now this one is open for interpretation. You can be completely dream, fever dream, fantasy, or you can be realistic. If Iron J or Iron Ben Coles, depending on what you'd prefer to be called, was to lace up the boots for an actual match, who would it be and what would the stipulation be?
We'll just do a normal match, hey? Because
you said that doesn't work for me, brother.
No? I don't know. Who's your favourite Aussie wrestler at the moment?
Oh, see, this depends. Do you mean actively in the Aussie scene or elsewhere and abroad?
Actively in the Aussie scene.
Does Robbie Eagles count? I mean, he's signed to New Japan, but he's just done a few PWA shows here and there.
Yeah, I'll give you Robbie. Okay. Well, there you go. I would like to take on Robbie.
See, I love that. You're just pandering here, but it works. And to be honestly, in all seriousness, I think a normal wrestling match with no bells and whistles with the two of you, given how technically gifted he is and the showmanship of you, along with the body and the ability, I think that'd actually be a fun little thing, to be honest.
I don't know, right?
Okay.
But we got to see him when AEW were in Queensland earlier this year. He was, doing Ring of Honor there.
I still need to check that match out, actually. I have a lot of friends that have shat on the Pure Rules. They don't like the gimmickiness of the rope breaks and stuff like that. I'm a very big fan of the Pure Rules because it opens up a lot of storytelling, and especially from a technical wrestler side with being able to manipulate the rope breaks and the only one close. I love that shit. So I really need to track down that match and give it a watch at some point.
Yeah, but again, you're seeing it live and you're like, hey, it's just, it's wild when you see someone that you've wrestled, or been in the ring with, and you're just like, holy crap, and they're still doing it. They're going, all the way with it. And it's inspiring to see. It really is.
So the last question before we go into all the plugs and stuff is always a non-wrestling question, and we try our best to tailor it to the individual. Given that, yes, we have talked at length about fish fingers and your journey into fitness and stuff like that, obviously, there's certain things you can only eat at certain times. What is Benny Cole's go-to cheat meal?
Oh, pizza, man.
Pizza. I love that it's always pizza or burgers 9 out of 10 times. I love it so much.
Come on now. Jeez. Meat lovers, as much meat as you can put on a pizza, and that's what I will go to.
See, we're a bit sad here at the moment. My wife's getting prepped for stomach surgery, so she's on a very strict diet. So we're not going to be able to have pizza for another 6 months, which honestly will probably benefit my fat ass just as much as well. But man, I said to her, the moment she's able to eat again, I was like, I'm getting the juiciest. And I literally said that to her. I'm like, I'm getting the juiciest, meatiest fucking pizza that I can possibly find in the town of Wagga.
Hell yeah.
With that being said, Benny, I thank you very much for your time for coming on tonight. And obviously, as I said, we've barely scratched the surface of your entire, 7-year journey, plus everything you've done with the personal training. And now you said you're going into carpentry. As I said, jack of all trades. You made the joke, said master of none, but that's crazy. But where can we find you on social media? Can we still get some sneaky Iron Ben Coles merch or Iron J merch? And just, take this time to plug whatever you want for the next couple of minutes.
Geez, the floor is yours. Just bennycoles.com. It would have most of my links and stuff like that. If you ever want to email me, you can. If you want a Benny Coles action figure, let me know. T-shirts and things like that. I think I've got them floating around here somewhere, but I don't have a shop or anything like that. I don't actively promote. Like I said, I'm just doing a carpenter. I'm just doing a simple apprenticeship at the moment. So and
yeah, I'm not trying to sell anything, so. But I do like to help people. So if anyone's going through stuff, like if you're struggling from a fitness side of things and you just want to pick my brain, happy to help. If you're struggling as a upcoming wrestler and would like to learn a bit of psychology or would, again, like to pick my brain, happy to help. If you like just collecting things and you want merch and stuff like that, shoot me an email, ben@bennycoles.com, and I will see what I have that I can send your way, So, yeah, always happy to help.
Hell yeah. Well, I myself am still dealing with some medical bills and stuff from the eye stuff that I mentioned before. But once I've got some cash in my account, I'm 100% going to be hitting you up for one of those action figures and a T-shirt and whatnot. That's cool to know that they're still floating around. I'm all for that.
Yeah,
but
DVD, there's all kinds of stuff. Yeah.
Oh hell yeah. I love DVDs. So many people of my generation are just like, why would you buy DVDs? It's all on streaming services. What happens when the WWE Network went down? Oh wait, they cancelled the WWE Network, and some of it's on Netflix, but there's a fuckload of it that's not, and it's all on a shelf right next to me right now. So who's laughing now?
Well, it was funny because I obviously wrestling in Australia, you were lucky to get $50 to wrestle, so there wasn't much money to be had. And it's like, would you drive 3 hours to pick up $50? And you're like, and put your body through what you put yourself through. So you've got to kind of think outside. So that's where, obviously I just went heavy into the merchandise and, you could make some, obviously when the INJ stuff took off, I was cleaning up pretty strongly from the merch sales and stuff like that. So I was always, and I was just trying to figure out, I'm just like, how can I make masks work? How can I sell red and white masks? And I was, just finding what was popular, what people were buying and what they wanted. And yeah, so shirts and masks and headbands and yeah, all kinds of stuff. I was really went heavy with it and seeing what I could do.
Do we have an inkling of when INJ or Iron Ben may be seen next, whether it's, at a seminar or at one of those charity events?
I have no idea. Bear Cottage does their superhero week in July, so we'll probably make a guest appearance out in Manly for that. But yeah, unless people reach out, I generally just keep to myself, keep a low profile. I've got my head shaved now so people don't recognize me. So, I kind of got the goatee going. So I look very different than the commercial days and things like that. But I'm happy, if anyone spots me and needs help or advice or anything, just wants to kind of pick someone's brain that's put in the work. I've put in some time, dedicated a lot of their life. I'd say 15 years easily, from the gym and the training and the watching the tapes and studying to getting on the road and traveling and doing all the stuff. It's definitely not for everybody, but for the few that do love it and do have that passion and that drive for it, there's nothing like it. So, yeah, happy to help.
I appreciate you giving this little tiny Aussie wrestling podcast a go, and as you said, you keep a low profile, so I definitely appreciate you jumping on here and having a chat with me and just giving me a chance to mark out a little bit. And as I said, I meant no disrespect when I was like, I'd always wondered, is INJ actually a fucking wrestler? And in the last, I'd want to say month and a half, maybe at most, I have taken in so much INJ/Iron Ben Cole stuff that 10 years ago I wouldn't have been able to watch.
Yeah,
is nuts to me.
There's stuff on YouTube, it's crazy. That it was recorded. Even like the cage match, like all the data and stuff like that that's on there. I'm just like, holy crap.
I actually went through the cage match profile because there was a handful of matches with you versus AJ Istria. So I went through cage match so that I could work out, because it just says they were uploaded 11 years ago. It doesn't have an actual date on them because they've been there for so long. And I was like, I've gone through cage match just to work out like which one is logistic so I could watch them like in chronological order. And there's a lot of stuff on that cage match page.
Yeah, and it tells you like how many matches you've had, and I was surprised at the amount of. And I only discovered this probably earlier this year that was actually a thing, and that someone had recorded all of this information. I was like, that's nuts.
I'm a little bit bitter with Cage Match, unfortunately, because I was just a small-time rinky-dink wrestler, and I finally only just got my profile like 6 months ago, and it says I only had 20-something matches. I've got a list. It's only 47, so it's nothing, nothing compared to what you or Giant Coyote or any of the other Aussie wrestlers that I've had on the show can do. But I'm just like, that's not fair. It says I've only had 20-something. I've had double that. But obviously, with I&J being a lot more publicly known than me, they're all on there.
Well, even it is, they don't have my matches against my brother when I was, in the boxing ring, and my first match where I had temporary tattoos on and a short haircut, and they miss a lot of stuff. Dude,
but it is ridiculous the amount of stuff that is, as we've said so many times in this conversation, just at our fingertips. It's crazy. But no, I just thank you so much for coming on. I hope you have a great night. I hope you have a great week. I hope your 2025 goes well. I mean, we're only still in the early quarter, so could be some fun things. But yeah, just thanks for coming on, man.
No, I appreciate it. Again, you reached out, and I'm always happy to help. So thanks so much.
Thank you very much. You have a good night. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that was Iron Ben Coles, I&J, Benny Coles. I said it in a different order too. I said it in the intro and then at the start of the conversation with Benny. But no, I'm going to say it 100,000 times. Thank you again to Benny for coming on and giving me the time of day, giving us the time of day, seeing as how it was meant to be myself and Nova as well. But as I said in the intro, she's still dealing with some health issues. It's unfortunately it's life at times. But no, thank you to Benny for coming on, having a chat, and just taking a chance on. It's a growing podcast, but still a very small podcast. We're at just over 3.7K all-time downloads. Our goal for 2025 is to hit 4.5K, and the way we're going, we may actually hit that goal. If we don't, it's fine. But I mean, on a technicality, we're actually close to 5K all up due to the duplicate episodes that are on YouTube, as well as the ones that have been uploaded in full to Facebook and stuff like that. But on actual podcast platforms, and since the podcast started being automatically distributed to YouTube without me having to manually upload it, we're at 3.7K. So that's the number that I'm looking at, is the official number. See, I'm doing the reverse thing that WWE does with their numbers and pro wrestling in general does with their numbers. I've actually deflated the numbers rather than inflated, but I wanted to officially read 4.5K in the one place. Is the point of that. But no, thank you to Benny Coles for coming on. A very fun conversation. 100%, once I get these medical bills and stuff sorted out, I'm going to be hitting him up for some merch and some DVDs and stuff like that. Because whether it's I&J or whether it's Iron Ben Coles or just Benny Coles, I always, as I said, when I saw the ads, I always loved the character. He was just so larger than life, even in those very small little clips, and getting to go back in the last week or so and watch some of his old matches and stuff like that. I've really enjoyed it. So if I could get some actual DVDs and dig deeper into the arsenal of I&J/Iron Ben Coles, I would very much enjoy that. And as I said, the action figure, definitely I would love to get, as well as a t-shirt. But that's neither here nor there. Thank you to Ben for coming on. Of course, all of his links will be below in the description. As he said, you can hit him up on socials. You can send him an email. He'll get back to you to the best of his ability. And of course, myself and Nova. Even though Nova's not here, I'll still put her link tree in, as I always do, because I'm such a loving husband and a loving co-host, which is the most important part, at least in this particular situation. But it's all there, all the socials, the bits and the bobs. Yet another week has gone, and I say, I really need to do a link tree just for CIC Pod on its own, but haven't done it. But all the CIC socials are both on mine and Nova's page. The Patreon page, where you get early access for as little as $5. You can get the digital version of my first ever children's book for the $10 sub, which is the tier 2 sub, and of course the $15 sub. You get the video footage of the watch-alongs, and you even get the chance to choose a topic for an episode and blah, blah, blah. Then, of course, the top tier is the Supernova tier. Again, Nova's not here, so I'm going to have to just do a shitty version of that. And you get a shout-out as long as you are a subscriber, we'll shout you out in the intro and outro. Want to start doing Patreon exclusive giveaways with a lot of the wrestling merch that I'm trying to give away. So say if I have something that's worth $200 and I have 5 $20 subscribers, that's $100. I will do some giveaways specifically for those 5 people. And And speaking of giveaways, somewhat of a segue, as I said, both mine and Nova's link trees contain all the socials. Once we get to 500 likes on the Caught in Conversation Facebook page, we are giving away a signed plaque from WWE Hall of Famer Edge, of course now known as Cope in AW, and a piece of the SmackDown ring skirt from 2002 and 2008. I've said it in all the posts. I've noticed the actual official graphic I did. I made a typo and it says 03 to 08, but whatever. It's still there. It's from 2002, 2008. I will be doing one of those little spin wheel thingies, and obviously it's only open to people in Australia and New Zealand. I know we do have lots of international listeners. If you want to cover shipping, you're more than welcome to front that bill. But for the most part, we're going to be just taking the hit and just kind of as a little thank you. So if you can build us up, we're only just over 300. So we've still got 200 likes to go. But if every single person that listens to this show just clicks invite all of their friends, then it's done. We'll be there in absolutely no time. And I truly would appreciate that. Obviously, my link tree specifically does have the GoFundMe that's there as well, the Amazon wish list, the little bits and bobs that's there. But yeah, really appreciate Benny for coming on, and definitely check out his links because he's the guest. But speaking of links, I'm going to try and do these plugs as quick as I can so we can get out of here. On May 31st in Victoria, MXW Let 'Em Cook. Link is below, and they're actually doing a bonus show. All tickets just $5. They're doing a bonus show in the afternoon before they get to the main show, which is freaking cool. And it's going to be the first installment of what they're calling MXW Inferno. I don't know if they're planning on doing it at every show, but I believe they're going to plan on doing it at a bulk of their show. So that's really cool. Bonus wrestling before the wrestling, just for an extra $5. Why the fuck not? Honestly, more wrestling is the best wrestling, at least in my opinion. And then ICW Tag Warfare, June 7th, has been made a private event. So if you really do want to attend that show, message ICW on Facebook or Instagram to sort out the logistics of that. So the link for that will no longer be there, but yeah, it's still happening. The footage will still be released eventually, but yeah, it's a private event for reasons I'm not entirely sure because I'm not part of management, and that's frankly none of my business, but I still want to promote my homies, of course. Although Jackson Thornhill is still on very rocky territory with me, he and Zach Striker, my 2 boys, my 2 young proteges, are the ICW Tag Team Champions, and they will be defending those titles in the Tag Warfare tournament at Tag Warfare. Go figure. So yeah, keep an eye out on that. And if you really want to attend, make sure you hit up ICW on the socials to work out the logistics of how you can attend that event. On July 19th, Extreme Capital Wrestling, or ECWA, which I've been putting the A in the brackets just in posts because we do have a broad country. We're in 15 different countries, I think we've worked out. Maybe 14. Screw it. I deflated my other numbers. I'm going to inflate these ones. We're in 15 different countries, which is still mind-boggling to me that, even if it's only one person in each of those countries, the fact that at your fingertips is it's there. So yeah, appreciate all your help. So yeah, Extreme Capital Wrestling, or ECWA, it's at the Queen and Tigers Club, so it's literally like right on the border of New South Wales and ACT. It's just around the corner from the Canberra airport. Go check that out, July 19th, links below. And then the big one for me, obviously there will be more events released later in the year, but the big one for me, the last one on the calendar for now, October 11th, Emma Butler Memorial Show. I do have a nice little handful of Radiation Kick shirts here on hand at the compound. I actually had a message about them 3 days ago as I record this, so hopefully I'll be able to donate another $10 to the charity very soon. $30 each, $10 from each shirt goes to the Emma Tongue Cancer Charity. You can prepay them pre-order, pay them to be ordered to picked up at that show. Or you can order one. It's $10 shipping, so it'll be $40 for 1 to 2 shirts. Obviously, more shirts. We can discuss postage and stuff like that. But yeah, $30 each, $10 of each shirt goes to the charity. As I said in the intro, just announced Dad Squad versus Whiplax, the very first match announced officially for this show. But with that just being said, as I've said 100,000 times, and I'll say it again, and we always make that joke, thank you to Iron J. Coles, a.k.a. Iron Ben Coles, a.k.a. Benny Coles, for coming on to this show. I am the essential John L. Crossfire. You guys were just caught in conversation. Nova Lee's literally looking at me right now. So sounds like she's feeling at least a little bit better, and either that or it's just a sudden random second wind. Thank you guys for listening. Titty sprinkles, stuff and things. How fucking good are fish fingers?